Hi guys, my name is Zach and today we're going to talk about a Mark IV Suzuki Swift Sport. This model was launched in 2005 and it was built up to 2012. But before we talk about some of the design features and quirks that the Mark IV has, we're just going to dive into some of the history about the Suzuki Swift. Once upon a time it was sold as a Suzuki Cultus, but we're just going to name it Swift just to make it easier. But it was sold globally, but it was just sold under different brands. So in America, it was called a Chevrolet Spirit. In Canada, it was called a Pontiac Firefly. In Australia, it was called a Holden Barina. And then Europe got it as a Suzuki Swift, as the likings of Japan. But now we're going to jump into the Mark IV and jump back to 2004, early 2004. Suzuki sent one of their designers called Yasukazu Kusi to Turin in Italy to get a feel for some of their culture, live there for 8 months and absorb some design ideas and just get a feel for Italian design. Late 2004, Yasukazu Kusi and Suzuki presented the concept car called the S. And then they launched the concept car S2. It was a big hit, so then jump to 2005 and they launched the Mark IV Suzuki Swift Sport as we have here. So if you're looking for a Group B car that's not expensive to run, it's cheap to buy, it's cheap to insure, and definitely a car that you can have loads of fun in, this is a very interesting car. Maybe you just got your license, maybe you want a weekend car that's not going to be expensive to run. It's a very interesting car. So Suzuki decided to launch this car with a 1.6 engine that has an iron block and an aluminium head. It's a 1.6 with 125 horsepower and 148 Newton meters of torque. It revs to 7,100 give or take, so it is a very, you have to drive it a bit like a motorbike to get the fun out of it. To get the power, you have to rev it up. But I think that just adds loads of charisma and it's basically intoxicating. It's a lot of fun to drive. But some of the interesting things is, on this engine, as I said earlier, it's an iron block with an aluminium head. It has a cam chain, not a cam belt. So servicing is, it's actually very easy to maintain and it's very reliable. So long as you do oil changes every 10,000 kilometers or 7,000 miles, it's going to last for ages. You know, don't go fast when it's cold. Respect the warm-up times, service it regularly, and you'll have a car that will last forever. But one of the interesting things on this car is Suzuki decided to fit forged pistons. So I really find that interesting because it's a cheap car, but they still fitted some forged pistons. So it's just reassuring that, you know, you're buying a used car with some forged components. I think for a car that you want to buy to have fun in, I think it just gives it a really, it gives you nice peace of mind that, you know, you can drive it hard. And obviously the engine you've got to rev up to get the most out of it. So it's definitely a nice thing to have. As I said, not crazy amount of power, but it's more than enough to have fun in. The only thing is, one small thing to keep in mind is this car is recommended that you use 98 octane fuel because it has a compression ratio of 11:1. So it is recommended that you use 98 octane fuel or higher. If you use 95, it will run, it will be fine. But if you want to look after it, use 98. If you want to track the car, service it after every track day, and you'll have a very reliable car that will last forever. I would say 300,000 kilometers if you service it regularly, depends how you look after it, but in between 200 and 300,000 kilometers, you should have no major problems. But one of the interesting things about this car is it's nothing special underneath, but it gets away with everything. So when we put up on the lift that we'll have a look, I'll show you some of the suspension components and the brakes, and we'll just look at the undercarriage, and so you can take a look for yourself. But it's a very rigid chassis. It's really firm, but it sort of drives really nicely. Because this wheelbase is not massive, even though it's rigid, it doesn't feel uncomfortable and bouncy. Don't get me wrong, it's always going to be, you know, it's not an S-Class. It's an everyday car, a small, cheap, hot hatch, but it's definitely a car that looks nice. I think it adds some, it's got quite a lot of personality. But yeah, I'll show you some design features of the car. We'll have a walk around it and so you guys can have a look. So on the front, we have this reworked front bumper. It has some small front kind of lip spoilers that they fitted to it. So it has these black bits going on here. We've got on either side, and it's a little bit flatter. So it's worked in a sort of more sporty kind of way. We have 17-inch alloy wheels with 195, 45, 17s all round. So the four of them are the same. On the front, on this current model, we have some cheap budget tyres, and on the rear, we have some Continentals. The Sport also gets these black A-pillars and the side, I would say B pillars in gloss black as well. We also get this small lip, spoiler, rear spoiler on the Sport models. On the rear, one of my favourite design features is we get twin exhaust pipes on the rear, twin tailpipes with a honeycomb mesh grille. I think it really suits the car and makes it look sporty and stand out from a normal, you know, everyday car. Interior as well, we get some very interesting things. One of the best parts for me is the seats. I really like the seats. They sort of look a bit like a Honda Civic Type R, which is never a bad thing. We've got this red mesh upholstery, and we've got a nice leather wrap steering wheel with red stitching. This gear knob is an aftermarket gear knob. Also looks kind of like a Honda piece, but that's not original. But I do think it looks really nice in this car. Radio is just a normal radio. You can swap it out for a 2-din radio and put, you know, a screen in there with CarPlay. It would really suit the car. We have climate control as well, and this car also has cruise control. You get sporty pedals on the Sport versions, which also, you know, set it off. But for me, the seats just make it look really nice. Rear passenger space is more than enough for 2 people. Maybe doing a long journey would be hard, but I think on this version is pretty decent. Boot space, we have 230 litres. For a Group B segment car, it's actually very decent. You've got enough for a weekend away or a week shopping trip. Seats fold back, so if you do need to do a small IKEA run, it's always handy. We've got the Suzuki up on the lift. We're going to take a look at the undercarriage. We'll have a look, see what kind of suspension Suzuki decided to fit to the Sport models, and some differences from the normal Swift versions. So what we'll do is we'll start from the rear and work our way forwards. A suspension setup, basically they decided to fit a solid beam axle, which is nothing special. It's quite, you know, normal. It's not independent. It doesn't have independent rear suspension, but I must admit, they have done a good job and it does get away with it. Handles really nicely, as we'll see later on in the video when we take it for a test drive. But suspension, so Suzuki had Monroe design some shocks for this car. They designed them specially for the Suzuki Swift Sport. So we've got slightly stiffer springs and Monroe rear shocks. As we work our way forward, we've got, this is the catalytic converter. And then front suspension is, we'll start with the suspension arms. Nothing special again. Suzuki decided to make some stamped iron press suspension arms. So nothing special, but you've got to keep in mind this car's also a very light car, so it does get away with all this kind of setup. Remember, this car weighs 1,105 kilos, give or take, with a full tank and a driver, and all with every liquid. So basically the car in running order. So it's a very light car. Shocks, well, suspension, we've got a McPherson set up. Also as well, Monroe designed the shocks and springs, so it does do a very good job regarding that. Then brakes, we've basically got a single piston caliper on each side up front, but I must admit it does do a good job on stopping the car. Obviously, same again, lightweight. As we move on to the wheels, so basically tyres, we've got 195, 45, 17s. So this car has Continental fitted on the rear, and we have some cheap ones on the front. But basically it's quite a simple setup under here. So let's take this girl for a drive. Seating position. Must admit, it doesn't feel like I'm sat in the car. I'm on the lowest position now, it can go up higher. It doesn't feel like I'm sat in the car, it feels like I'm sat on top of the car. But I must admit, it feels better than a Fiat 500 Abarth, and it feels, you know, on a Fiat 500 Abarth, you feel like you're sat on top of the car on a stool. And this feels in between that. I'm sat on a small stool on top of the car. Feels better than a Fiesta ST as well. Pedal positions, quite separate. They're not close together, which is quite nice because I've got a size 44 or 45 on shoe size. So yeah, it feels nice. Feels very good. It feels reassuring that I'm not going to press the brake pedal by accident. So we've got the aircon on. It's a very hot day today. We're at 28 degrees. So aircon on. Let's start with the gearbox. So the gearbox is a 5-speed gearbox, quite a short ratio. So Suzuki decided to not go crazy on the gearbox design, just went for a short ratio gearbox, and it does the job perfectly. The throw on it is very short, so it feels like a Honda gearbox, I must say, which is very nice when you do want to play around with the gears. It is a type of engine where you're constantly playing around with the gearbox because it's a short ratio, but I think that just adds character and it gives more engagement to this type of car and driving experience. Steering is electrically assisted, so it's not hydraulic. I remember when these cars first came out that the journalists were saying that the steering was slightly vague, but I must admit, by today's standards, it feels absolutely fine. Feels absolutely fine. The feel on it is more than adequate. I do get enough feel for the car. Obviously, in a little while, we'll go a little bit faster, and I'll show you. Gearbox is lovely. Just keep that in mind that because it's a short ratio gearbox, when you travel on the motorway at 120 kilometers an hour, it's always going to be quite high revved. Roughly around 4,200 revs at 120 kilometers an hour. But it doesn't feel intrusive. It doesn't feel like the car's shouting, "Give me another gear." I mean, it would be nice to have a 6th gear, but it's actually okay. You accept it. I'm sure if this car had someone fitted an aftermarket exhaust to it, it'll be very drony on the motorway. But with the standard exhaust system, it feels absolutely fine. I prefer having a short ratio gearbox, and if they gave me a 6th gear and then all the ratios were longer geared. It's what it is. It's a small car. It's made to have fun, so I think that's just a small compromise that you live with, because it gives you a better smile when you do want to drive it hard. We're on a bit of a bumpy road, so you might hear some road noise. So brakes feel plentiful. They feel like they do their job very well. Keep in mind it's a light car, just over 1,100 kilos. Steering, as we said before, it's electronically assisted, not hydraulic, and I'm getting enough feedback from it. It feels absolutely perfect. Hard right here, a little bit of understeer, but it's no problem. It could do with a limited slip differential if you wanted to track the car, but for the road, it puts the power down nicely. Only really when you're on the limit you feel like you would need a limited slip diff. Really brakes nicely. Around the corner, grips well. With these 195s, I thought it would be a little bit, it would need maybe slightly wider tyres, but I must admit, it grips very nicely. And keep in mind, we've only got cheap budget tyres on the front, and it's doing a very good job. This car with some semi-slicks would be amazing. Would be really nice. Maybe some nice pads, uprated semi-racing brake pads, and maybe some steel braided brake lines, and some semi-slicks on the front at least would be really nice on this car. If it was mine, that's something I would do. And then maybe in a later date, fit some coilovers. You want something fun, you want something that your friends will be impressed by maybe. Maybe you want it to look quite nice at the McDonald's car park. Or you want an everyday car that you can still have fun with on the weekend. This is a very good option. The interior is very nice, very well put together. As we mentioned before, it's got climate control. I've got the aircon on nearly at full power. It's doing a great job on this hot day. We've got a radio as well. If it was mine, I'd probably fit a 2-DIN radio so we could have Apple CarPlay and just give it a bit more of a modern look. All the plastics and everything, all the feels, it all feels very nice. Don't get me wrong, if it is plastic, it feels plasticky, but it feels well built. There's no big rattles, there's no creaks. We are on a slightly bumpy road, but it feels absolutely perfect. I've seen newer cars with basically the same quality as this, even from the likes of Audi. So I think to today's standards, it feels very, very good, and it's withstanding the years very well. Comfortable, not very juicy, and fun to drive.